Welcome back everyone. Today we're going to be trying something new for the channel as we take a deep dive into the animated series called The Mona Lisa. This animated series follows the crew of the UNSC Red Horse as they're sent to investigate what happened aboard the Mona Lisa, a prisoner transport ship that was mysteriously deployed at Installation 04 following the events of Halo Combat Evolved. After boarding the vessel, the Marines discovered that the ship was a testing site for Oni experiments utilizing the galaxy's biggest threat, the Flood. In order to survive, the team will have to make an uneasy alliance with prisoners and prevent the Flood from escaping. Before I dive into the story summary, I just want to really clearly say that there are spoilers ahead, obviously, but if you're here for the summary, I've done my very best to summarize the film, the series, the animated, whatever you want to call it. So grab your popcorn and let's get into it. Aboard the UNSC Red Horse, close to the wreckage of Alpha Halo, a team of Marines and naval personnel led by Sergeant Lopez recover an escape pod that can't initially be identified as anything other than not Covenant. After cracking inside the pod, they find a critically injured man hanging onto life by a thread. They discover that he is an escaped prisoner from a converted transport freighter referred to as the Mona Lisa. After he expires, Sergeant Lopez is summoned to meet with the commanding officer of the Red Horse, Commander Tobias, as well as the new smart AI, Rebecca. This is when Lopez is ordered to take her team and investigate the Mona Lisa, but they are not really briefed on what exactly went wrong with the vessel or what they should expect aboard. Before departing, Sergeant Lopez comes to the realization that her entire team is comprised of people who met the mysterious prisoner. This will be important later in the story as it was no coincidence. These characters include Corpsman Benty, Clarence, McCraw, and Burgundy, their pilot for the mission. Sergeant Lopez seems to have established a family-esque relationship with these individuals, kind of acting as a tough mother figure, even calling them her kids. Once they're aboard the Mona Lisa, the team discovers that the vessel has gone completely silent, finding no signs of prisoners or even the ship's crew. But they are ambushed by a small group of unarmored Covenant Sangheili. And after easily dispatching them, Benty runs off chasing one of them. The alien, to Benty's surprise, puts its finger to its mouth in a hush-like gesture, then pointing out into the darkness. Benty, confused as to why the elite wasn't trying to kill her, hesitates for a moment, but is brought back to reality as Clarence finishes off the elite himself. After the Marines finish killing off the last few Covenant prisoners in the area, they realize that one of their squad mates, Rabbit, has gone missing. Lopez orders a small detachment to stay behind and guard the Pelican, while the rest look for the missing Marine. They then find that the lost Marine has been killed by an unarmed Sangheili who is now stomping on her chest, with her torso now caved in. Disturbed by this, the Marines gun down the elite, and while removing Rabbit's dog tags, Lopez notices an unnatural growth inside of her body. Just as they're about to head back, the Marines who are guarding the Pelican are attacked by something coming from the darkness, being quickly overrun. Still inside the cockpit of the Pelican, Burgundy watches as the bodies are dragged away back into the darkness. The remaining Marines make contact with Commander Tobias, who initiates the Cole Protocol, out of fear that the Covenant are responsible for this attack. This would mean that Lopez and the other Marines need to erase the ship's navigation data, as well as any information that could lead the Covenant back to Earth. Lopez then divided her remaining Marines into two groups, one led by herself to destroy the nav data on the bridge, and the other led by Benty to destroy the backup in the engine room. As Benty's team leaves, Lopez realizes that yet another Marine has now gone missing. Lopez and her squad make their way to the ship's medical bay, where they find a sealed safe room and open it to reveal the ship's supposed medical officer, John Smith. Believing Smith to be the only surviving human left on the ship, Lopez interrogates him, and he reveals that experiments were being conducted on Covenant prisoners with an unknown infection. But then the infection jumped to human prisoners. Jumping back over to Burgundy, Cranker and Mahler, two of the Marines who were dragged away, approach the Pelican somehow still alive. Burgundy opens the Pelican for them to get in, but realizes once they get closer that they are in fact dead, with their bodies now being disjointed and deformed. She tries to get away but is overpowered and dragged away herself, rather than being killed as they were. Meanwhile, Benty's group makes their way to the bilges of the ship, where they are attacked by a group of deformed and mutilated prisoners. As the Marines are in the middle of making their escape, Orlov is fatally wounded, dies, and then quickly reanimates, biting the Marine Gersten in the process. Benty's team finds a human survivor, a prisoner named Patrick Rimmer, and a Sangheili who he made an alliance with, whom he refers to as Henry. Rimmer quickly identifies that Gersten, who was just bitten, has now become infected. As they argue over what they should do, the Marine who has been quiet the entire mission, Clarence, shoots Gersten point blank in the head. Almost as soon as it hit the ground, Gersten's body quickly reanimates, and Clarence shoots him again. Now losing her patience, Lopez intimidates Smith into revealing that he is actually a Section 3 ONI operative, the branch of the UNSC's intelligence operations which specialize in the analyzation and innovation of new technologies, responsible for many of the UNSC's top secret operations such as the Spartan 2 and 3 programs. Smith reveals that ONI sent the Mona Lisa prison transport to the remnants of Installation 04 to investigate the parasitic infection that was encountered on the ring, hoping to control and weaponize it against the Covenant. As Commander Tobias and the AI Rebecca continue to argue over whether or not they're going to scuttle the Mona Lisa after being unable to establish contact with the team, Tobias refuses to believe that the team has simply gone dark, arguing that something bigger may be at play. We then cut to Burgundy, who is still shown as alive, having been taken prisoner by the Flood-infected Marines. She pleads to be let go, but is unable to reason with her dead squad mates, as they are now merely reanimated corpses. As Lopez and her team make their way to the testing lab, Smith details how the Flood parasite converts its victims. He reveals that the Flood infection assimilates its host, wiping their memories but retaining their knowledge, stating that it can control their body on a molecular level, twisting and contorting them, making them into walking weapons. He then scans them into the hidden lab where he had ran his experiments, revealing that they were not just testing on the Covenant, but also the Flood's effect on human prisoners. And then in the middle of him explaining why ONI would go to such lengths in order to get a step up on the Covenant, he uses a knife that he had concealed and stabs one of the Marines in the neck, taking his assault rifle from him, then getting a shot off in Lopez's shoulder, making his escape. Almost having made it to the nav room together, an infected Sangheli kills 2 of the remaining Marines in Lopez's team, leaving only herself and McCraw. After making it inside, Lopez establishes contact with the Red Horse and is informed that Smith has stolen their Pelican. Tobias also mentions that the Red Horse will destroy the Mona Lisa to ensure that the Flood will not escape. Knowing that they would all not escape together, he reveals that there are 2 escape pods still left on the Mona Lisa and that they don't have long before they will fire on the ship. Lopez then opens the comms on the ship to warn whatever might be left of her squad, letting them know that they don't have long. Benty's team, now only consisting of herself, Clarence, Rimmer, and Henry, finally reaches the engine room. Here they watch as Burgundy is thrown into a writhing growth filled with screaming human faces covering the ship's slip space engine. She is quickly consumed by the mass and added to the Flood's collective consciousness. The team then deduces that the Flood are trying to hotwire the Mona Lisa slipspace drive, and then Benty uses the last of her grenades to throw at the Flood growth, hoping to destroy it. As they race to meet with Lopez and McCraw, Benty is injured by an infected Marine. Henry quickly picks her up and carries her the rest of the way to the pods without hesitation. As the team is reunited, Clarence turns and shoots Rimmer in the head, leaving the others to deduce that he has actually been an ONI plant since the very start. Clarence then reveals that there were never meant to be any civilian or Covenant survivors aboard the Mona Lisa, and that he was there to ensure that. As the survivors enter a standoff, McCraw takes one of the remaining escape pods, abandoning everyone else. And in the middle of the commotion, Benty sacrifices herself, pushing herself and Clarence into the Flood's horde, trying to give Lopez and Henry a chance to survive. Lopez and Henry work together in holding off the Flood long enough to enter the airlock, but then realize that there's only enough room for one of them in the pod. Lopez aims her rifle and tries to shoot Henry, but when she pulls the trigger, she's alerted that she's out of ammunition. The two, realizing that there's only one way out of this, lunge at each other and the film ends. Now, to my understanding, this and all of the stories from Halo Evolutions are considered canon, but there's nothing really concrete on if anything that happened here really affected any mainline events. Meaning that for all characters introduced here, this was both their first and last appearance. Chances are that anyone aboard the Red Horse, with maybe the exception of Commander Tobias, were probably dealt with by ONI, with any information about what happened aboard the ship expunged from record. But it's also said that there's no record of Sangheli being aboard the vessel either, so technically no one in the galaxy will ever know that there was a naked elite running around and smashing Flood with a cricket bat. That's pretty sad. Aside from all of the bigger implications, I think the question that we all want to ask here is who survived that final fight? Henry or Lopez? And I'd love to hear what you all think happened, but my personal take is that Henry actually won the hand-to-hand combat. Now, this is due in part to the Sangheli being significantly stronger, but also because Lopez was kind of injured and in a weakened state. The fight probably would have ended pretty quick. But even if Henry did win, I'm not entirely sure that he'd even fit inside of the escape pod. And then on top of that, whether or not it was Henry or even Lopez who survived the imminent bombardment, both probably would have been detained aboard the Red Horse, interrogated by ONI, and then probably sent to a holding site or even killed. Now, I loved this story, and I have probably watched the compilation of all of the different parts in the series at least 20 times, And in fact, when I was trying to refresh myself on the story making this video, I ended up watching it twice and then went on to rewatch all of the other Halo Evolution films. So that definitely made the scripting and editing part of this week a little difficult. But I cannot stress enough how great these animated films are, with the Mona Lisa easily taking the top of the list. But that ends my film summary on the Mona Lisa animated series, movie, film, whatever you want to call it. I just want to say thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed the content, please be sure to like the video and subscribe if you want to see more. I really enjoyed making this film summary video, so if you guys have any suggestions on what films I should cover next in this series of summaries, please let me know. But that's all for now. I will see you in the next video.